In the early 20th century, America presented itself to the world as a land of boundless freedom, a beacon of liberty. But along its sun-drenched coastlines, that freedom had a stark and cruel boundary. For millions, it stopped at the color of their skin. Imagine miles of pristine white sand, the endless blue of the ocean meeting the shore. A picture of paradise. But for black families, this paradise was forbidden territory. They were banned from touching the sand, from feeling the cool water on a hot summer day. The segregation of the Jim Crow era wasn't just confined to buses, schools, and courthouses. It was carved into the very landscape of the nation, etched onto signs that stood like sentinels along the coast. Whites only. The words were a wall as real as any physical barrier. No colored allowed. A declaration of exclusion. Police officers patrolled the beaches not to protect, but to enforce this invisible line. Imagine a child running with the simple joy of being near the ocean, only to be chased away, their laughter silenced by threats. In some places, the enforcement was even more brutal. Local mobs, men paid to maintain the racial order, used fear, fists, and sometimes even fire to keep the shores segregated. The vast, powerful ocean belonged to no one, yet the land that met it was fiercely guarded. The ocean was free, the shore was not. This was the America of the 1920s. A nation divided, where a simple day at the beach was a privilege, not a right. The message was clear. This beauty, this piece of the American dream, was not for you. The joy of the coast, the shared experience of sun and surf, was violently denied to black citizens. It was a profound and constant reminder of their second-class status. A wound inflicted not just on their rights, but on their very spirit. But in the face of this systemic oppression, something remarkable began to happen. In the shadows of injustice, seeds of resistance were planted. In 1922, in a quiet corner of Oklahoma, a black businessman named John T. Bailey stood looking at a stretch of riverside land. Where others might have seen a simple plot of earth, he saw something revolutionary. He wasn't thinking of profit or power. He was thinking of something far more precious. Safety. He purchased that land and began to build something almost unheard of in that era. He built a sanctuary, a black beach. He named it the Black Pearl. The name itself was a stamenta thing of beauty, rare and precious, formed under immense pressure. For the very first time in that region, black families had a place where they could swim without constantly looking over their shoulders. They could lay out a picnic blanket without watching the road for approaching danger. They could laugh, a full, unrestrained laugh, without the fear of sirens cutting it short. Here, children didn't just learn what the water felt like against their skin. They learned it while playing, not while fleeing. The Black Pearl was so much more than a place for recreation. It was a place of dignity. It was a pocket of freedom in a country that denied it. It was a defiant act of joy, a declaration that black life and black happiness mattered. It was a community building its own world, one grain of sand at a time. This quiet revolution was not an isolated event. As the years passed, the idea spread far to the east. In South Carolina, the waves of the Atlantic Ocean crashed against a shore that was just as segregated as any other. But in 1934, another visionary refused to accept this exclusion. His name was George Tyson. He saw a strip of Atlantic coastline not as a barrier, but as an opportunity, against immense pressure, against threats of violence, against laws specifically designed to stop men like him from owning such valuable property. Tyson persisted. He purchased the land and opened Atlantic Beach. It quickly became known as the Black Pearl of the Atlantic coast. Suddenly, a place that had been a symbol of rejection became a symbol of welcome. Black families could finally walk the sand with their heads held high. The air at Atlantic Beach was different. It was filled with the sounds of freedom. Music poured from pavilions, jazz, blues, the rhythms of joy. The sweet smell of barbecue smoke drifted over the shore, mixing with the salt of the ocean breeze. It was a vibrant, thriving resort where laughter was the common language. For a beautiful, fleeting moment, it felt as though the ocean truly belonged to everyone. These beaches were more than just resorts. They were kingdoms of joy, built in defiance of a hateful world. But success, especially black success, in a segregated America, always has enemies. The existence of these thriving black resorts was an affront to the white power structure. White politicians were enraged. Wealthy developers coveted the prime coastal land, but they did not want the people who had built a community there. And so, They began to attack these sanctuaries, not with signs and patrols, but with the cold, calculated weapons of bureaucracy and sabotage. They used the law as a weapon, seizing property through eminent domain under false pretenses. They cut off funding for infrastructure, blocked roads to make access impossible, and, in a final insidious act, they simply erased these places from official maps. It was a campaign to make them disappear, to pretend they had never existed at all. Some beaches vanished quietly, choked off from resources until they withered away. Others met a more violent end, burned to the ground in the dead of night, their ashes scattered by the ocean wind. History, as it is so often written by the powerful, did not record their names. The official record remains silent, and that silence did the rest of the work, bearing the memory of these havens of black joy under decades of forgetting. The message was clear. If we can't have it, we will destroy it, and then we will pretend it was never there. In the wake of this targeted destruction, most of the black beaches that had once dotted America's coastlines and riverbanks disappeared. They became ghosts, whispers in the memories of those who had known their brief, beautiful existence. The Black Pearl of Oklahoma, Lincoln Hills in Colorado, and so many others faded into the forgotten corners of American history. But some stories of resistance have a different ending. Atlantic Beach in South Carolina endured. It was protected by the very families who had built it, who had found joy and dignity on its shores. They refused to let it go. They held on, passing ownership down from generation to generation, not as a business to be profited from, but as a promise to be kept. It survived because it was more than just land. It was a legacy. It was a testament to the resilience of a community that had carved out its own freedom. These were never just beaches. They were battlegrounds of the civil rights movement, fought not with marches and speeches, but with picnics and laughter. They were defiant acts of resistance, creating spaces for joy in a nation that actively denied it. They were living, breathing proof that even when freedom was made illegal, even when it was attacked from all sides, people still found a way to build it with their own two hands. Today, Atlantic Beach still stands. It is a quiet reminder of a loud history, a living monument to a struggle that is too often overlooked. When you stand on an American beach today, wherever it may be, take a moment